Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Govs on the Go Alumni Edition, a podcast featuring alumni from the College of Arts and Letters here at Austin Peay State University. My name is Dr. Buzz Hoon. I'm the Dean of the college. I'm also the host of the podcast. Today, I'm talking with Lindsey McClendon, who graduated with a degree in music in 2016. Lindsey, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here.
Great. And you know, when we were told about you as a potential guest, I said, this person sounds like the perfect the College of Arts and Letters student when she was here. So I'm all excited to hear about your memories of being a student here at Austin Peay. But let's give everybody a life update. What's going on? Where are you? And what's going on in your life?
Well, right now I am here in good old Tennessee for a visit to my family, but I currently live in the small village of Kleinrinderfeld, Germany, where I work in a workshop making handmade jewelry.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we're going to hear a little bit more about how you ended up it's so far away from us in
Yeah.
just a few moments. But let's begin at the beginning. I always like you to start at the origin. And
Mhm.
you grew up in Greenbrier. So what
Yes, I
was it
did.
life like early on for you? What kind of memories did you have? And how did living in Greenbrier impact you?
Well, things started of course, at Greenbrier Elementary School. And while I was there, the music teacher was Miss Diane Evans. And I have very early remembrances of being in her music class and all of the different kinds of things that we did in her class, specifically the playing of the recorder,
Oh,
the
yeah.
little flutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of developed into me playing the clarinet later on. And I was also a member of the Bobcat Beat, the little children's chorus there at the Greenbrier Elementary School. And another teacher that I had during that time that I can remember was Miss Madeline McCarroll. She was my third grade teacher. And one of the things that she always really liked to do with us was she would want us to put on plays for the school. And there was one year during the Christmas play where she wanted me to play Mrs. Claus, which was sort of the lead girl role. And I didn't really know why she wanted me to do it instead of one of the more popular girls, I guess, in my opinion. But in the end, it really worked out wonderful. And it's sort of, I guess I was only 8 years old or something like that. But it just really sort of awoke this love for, I guess, not only performance in me, but also this desire to create, this desire to produce something that people can enjoy. You know what I mean? Whether it's
Absolutely.
on stage or off stage, whether it's a performance that I can share with someone, or whether it's something like a piece of jewelry that is going to make someone happy. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
it's led to me being in a position now where I feel like, if I may say, a little elf in this magical workshop where I can create something that's going to make someone happy.
That's amazing that sometimes things will happen early on in our lives and we
Mhm.
look back and recognize that had an impact on the direction that we may have been headed. Because as you mentioned, that teacher somehow just giving you that opportunity, that little nudge
Right.
to say, go out there. And that, as you said, created this, or at least awoke maybe the creative spirit that was already inside of you, and gave you the courage to go out and continue to do that. Because obviously you must have taken that into high school there in
Mhm.
Greenbrier. And were you in the marching band there? Were you in singing groups?
I was in the marching band, but that is also a very interesting story that I would like to tell, if I
Yeah.
may. Um, while I was in the Greenbrier Middle School band, I had just started playing the clarinet maybe 3 years ago or so at this point, and I actually had no plans to join the marching band because it looked hard. It looked like a lot of work and a large commitment, and it looked too difficult for me. And so I thought, I would like to maybe try to focus on more academic and not so much athletics, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
So I had no plans to join the marching band. But what happened was the band director at the time, his name was Mr. Drew Alt. He didn't quite have enough people for the kind of drill that he was planning to do that year, and I think the year was 2005. So he came to Greenbrier Middle School and invited a few of the eighth graders that year to come up and fill some holes in the high school marching band. And I was one of the people that was asked to do that. And I think there was maybe one young man who was a percussionist who was asked to join the drum line, but I was the only person from the horn lines, from the wind instruments, that was asked to do it. And to be quite honest, I felt a little bit of pressure because I was only 13 at the time, and I felt a little bit of pressure because it was almost like, oh, this is a huge honor.
Hmm.
Like no one else in your class was asked this, and if you're not willing to give it a try, like you've got to at least try. And that's what my parents were saying too. It was just sort of like, well, at least give it a try and try to be open-minded, and just see what happens. Who knows? You might like it. And I thought, well, I just can't say no. It was one of those situations where I couldn't say no. So I went to band camp and I gave it a try, and it turns out that I absolutely loved it. And not only did I love it, but if I might say, I was quite good at it. And and I really enjoyed it, and it was for my mind and the way it works. It was a challenge, and it was fun, and it was exciting, and it was, there again, it was a performance. And it was something that I could do to, so that I felt like, because I was an only child. And when I find myself as a part of a performing group like this, it's sort of like I can feel like I'm more than just myself. I can feel like I'm part of this group that creates something big. I'm something more than just me as an individual. We can work together, create something big that the people in the stands can enjoy.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I try to remind our students that are in marching band now about how what they're doing is such a service for the audience. They get the audience,
Right.
whether it's a family member or friend, but really so many alums that or supporters of the university that hear the Go band, or the Gome band, is just they get such an enjoyment out of the creation of what you all do.
Right.
It's a joy. And I don't know if the students, maybe without the perspective that you have, understand what they're giving to the rest of us, especially those. To be honest, Lindsey, I stopped at the recorder when I was in grade school. I never moved beyond the recorder. So so how did Austin P come into your sights, and how were we fortunate enough to get you to come here?
Well, to be quite honest, Austin P was the college that was in close proximity to my hometown. And I didn't want to be so far away from my family. See, for me, family has always been really important. I mean, obviously, I come visit them as often as I can, even now. But I wanted to be in close enough proximity to my family that I could come home every weekend, at least. I mean, while I was at Austin P, I was living in the dorms, and then I was a little while at Hand Village, and then I was a little while at the university apartments there in my different years. But I was able to come home every weekend almost anyway. And that was really important for me. And then I think that last year in high school, I was thinking about going around and maybe visiting at UT Martin, maybe visiting a little bit at MTSU, but I came to Austin P first and checked around the campus and sort of I think I did one of those campus tours, but there was something about Austin P that just sort of felt like home almost immediately.
Hmm.
I don't really know how to describe that feeling, but I sort of knew that Austin P was the right one. Maybe it was just because I appreciated that the campus is a little bit small so that it's easy to walk to to all the different places. You don't have to worry about, getting and driving and parking and all these other things. I mean, I always just walked to my classes every day. And I mean, for me personally, I've always been kind of a walker, kind of a nature person anyway. And yeah, I just kind of decided that Austin P was going to be the right one for me.
Oh, and we're fortunate that you did. So what are some early memories of coming in, and it must have, were you in the band right away? Did you come for band camp?
I was there for band camp, yes. I can remember my very first day. This was back when Rollins Hall was still a thing. And that was where I lived, first of all, with a roommate. And my roommate, her name was Ashley. She was in the color guard. So she was there, I think, 1 week earlier than me because the color guard camp was 2 weeks and the hornline camp was just the 1 week. And I remember arriving and not knowing where anything was or what to do and being kind of nervous because it was my very first college band camp. And thankfully, I had Ashley because she was the one who kind of showed me like where to walk and where to go and where the music center was and where the practice field was because she had been there 1 week before. So thankfully, I had her to kind of help orient me. But yeah, that's kind of obviously that first week was a complete and total blur. Just, the typical band camp stuff, lots of music, lots of marching, lots of stretches and warm-ups and uh music and section things and just everything was kind of a blur. But I settled into it. I find that I tend to be a pretty adaptable person. So I settled into it pretty quickly.
Good. And so you must have been very busy. I mean, right away, I know the demands of a marching band and on a new person. What other things did you like to do while you were here?
Well, towards the beginning, it was a little bit confusing and also, to be quite honest, a bit saddening because I was an undecided major at first. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to major in, and everyone was telling me, it's okay if you don't know, you can be an undecided major. It's really, and I thought, well, yeah, but there's going to come a point in time where I do have to choose one. So, and I was sort of trying to do, I think there was some kind of program there in the center. It's hard to remember exactly what it was called, but I think I was trying to do the little tests to sort of help me try to decide a major. There was something there for those people who were undecided. And I think I did one of those things one time because I went through a lot of things before I landed in vocal performance because I just wasn't sure.
Sure.
I think I went through first it was English because I've always been, oh, I haven't said this yet. I've always been a bit of a writer, creative writing. And I've written a few short stories and poems and things already, not yet published, but that's coming up hopefully
See, I
in the
told you
next
folks, the perfect
in the
arts and
next
letters
year or
student.
so. That was my first choice, English. And but then it was sort of like, oh well, I don't know. And then I moved into, I think, oh, what was the next one? Something totally different, computer science. And I tried that for a while because that's always been something that I found to be really fascinating. I've always had a little bit mechanical minded logic machines and these sorts of things. Thankfully, I can apply that in my daily life now in the workshop. Have a little bit of that in my life too. But the computer thing, the programming thing, I went there, I tried that, and it wasn't for me. Um, oh, and there was a time when I tried to major in business because I thought, well, okay, that's a good general thing, like general knowledge,
Sure.
just to know for whatever I wind up doing after college. So I tried that. Wasn't really my thing, for me personally. Um, and then I wound up doing or trying, we'll say trying, music education. And I thought, well, maybe I could be an elementary school teacher, sort of like Miss Diane Evans one day, and sort of help children discover their avenues or talents or whatever, sort of like I was helped back then. Maybe I can give that back to my community. And then there was this lesson planning and all of this writing and all of this all of this writing that was not creative writing. And then it was sort of like, well, it's a respectable thing. It's a nice thing, but it's not my thing. And by this point, I had sort of wormed my way into some other choir-based things. So by this point, I wasn't just marching band, then I was also a little bit choir. I was in the university choir with Dr. Foster. And, I was getting suggestions. Well, why not try performance? You could get with one of these teachers here, and I wound up choosing Dr. Oturu as my voice professor. And then I think in the last year it was then Dr. Mabry. But that's sort of how, and I think it was Miss Bishop, who was the opera director at the time. I think it was her that eventually suggested, oh, you could try singing at the Trinity Episcopal Church here in Clarksville. And you could sort of have a little income that way. They're looking for choir singers. So I thought, well, okay, I'll try that. And I really enjoyed that. And so I eventually just sort of switched over to vocal performance, and just everything after I did that, everything just sort of went like this. And everything made so much sense after
Mhm.
that. And I found myself surrounded by so many professional people and so many great faculty, staff, students, just everybody inspiring each other. And it really it felt like home. And that's how I wound up in vocal performance.
Nice. So you mentioned a few names there that I recognize. What
Uh-huh.
other professors had an impact on you?
Well, definitely Mr. Schnettler, the marching band director. And then let's see if I can remember everyone. I don't want to leave someone out. Uh, then Dr. Foster, the choir director, and Miss Bishop, the opera director from that time. And then there was Dr. Oturu, Dr. Mabry, and then, of course, Dr. Brockman, the German professor. Like I said, I wound up in her class because I had to take one of the languages for the music degree. And one thing that really stands out to me was me and my best friend at the time. Her name was Christina. And we were both in the vocal performance program and in the same year because she and I graduated high school together and then both went to Austin P and then both wound up in the vocal performance program.
I'll be.
So we were kind of, people used to make fun of us because we were kind of joined at the hip, but she was my best friend. And at the time, we were having a class conflict because we had so much to do. We were in the upper level music program, and we had all of this theory and all of these uh, different arioso classes and opera and choirs and university choirs and chamber singers and everything else. And we were having a class conflict with one of the German classes that we absolutely needed to graduate. And Dr. Brockman made an exception for us because we could not be in her regularly scheduled class time. So she scheduled a little meeting just for the three of us in her office so that she could sort of give us a little private instruction so that we could get that credit and not have to worry about, like, at a time that was okay for us, which enabled us to get that class credit without having to. And I just really wanted to mention that I definitely remember that she was nice
Yeah.
enough to do that for us.
Dr. Brockman is that type of person that goes outside of
Yeah,
what's required.
yeah.
And you know, you and I were talking before we recorded here that you had to select one of the languages, and because I thought to myself, did you know German before you came here? And you said, no, yeah, I just selected one. And it's funny that this is sort of that somehow you were guided, and
Hmm.
you know the
Yeah.
spirit must have said you needed to have this language, and so you were into
Yes.
that.
Yes. So it was very helpful, obviously, to have the sort of foundation in German before I moved on and met met these wonderful people from Germany and wound up moving over there.
So let's talk a little bit about that. After you graduated, you said that you were trying to decide what you're going to do with your life and how you ended up in another country.
Well, how that happened is a really fun story. I had not yet really found a choir position or in anything really here in the States yet. And it just so happened that during that time, just a few months after I graduated, I met a group of lovely people from Germany, and they were here in the Nashville area to record an album. They're actually a rock band, and they often come over to the Nashville, Tennessee area to record their albums. And that's how I met them. And one of the band members, the keyboardist, we got to talking and we sort of fell in love at first sight.
I'll be.
It was very, very sweet, and we sort of met each other every night for the rest of the time that he was here. He had only about a week left when we met each other. And so we spent those last few days sort of hanging out and getting to know each other a little bit before his flight back. And um, his name's Oliver, by the way. Uh, and so we were then for about 1 year in a long distance relationship. And of course, we didn't like that very much. We wanted it to be a in-person relationship.
That's a
And
long,
so
long distance relationship.
that is very long distance, yes. And so he eventually said, you know what? It just so happens to work out that I have a small business over here in Germany, and we specialize in gemstone pendants and gemstone pyramids, and we make them all ourselves in our little workshop. And he said, what I can do is I can offer you a job at my small business, and through the job, you can get the residence permit, which will allow you to stay in Germany. So there's that option if you might be interested in that option. And I said, absolutely, let's do that.
Wow. You're so
Yeah,
courageous.
yeah. Well, it was, I will admit it was kind of wild because I'd never left the country before. This was my very first time ever leaving the country, and it was completely by myself. Like no one went with me. No
Right.
family went with me, no friends went with me. And you don't know what to expect when you get to a new country and you have to do the border control stuff, and it's like, well, do I have all of my papers? Have I done everything right? Uh what are they going to ask me for? What are they not going to ask me for? It's just like this whole new experience if you've never done it before and you're completely by yourself and you're just kind of feeling really lost. But it was all right in the end. It was worth it because once I got through all of that, he was waiting for me on the other side to pick me up and take me to good old Kleinrinderfeld, where my little workshop is, and I make jewelry there. So yeah,
And now you probably speak German very well.
I do. Yes.
Yes. And do you sing anymore? Do you sing in German, for example?
Well, the music scene in Germany is very, very active, in both the classical world as well as the rock and roll world. And like I said, because he's a member of a rock band, I kind of wound up going a little bit more in that direction just because of the association there. By the way, the band is called Wolf Spirit, It's spelled like all one word together. And it's like the plural for wolf, like with the VE. And then the S is the first letter in spirit. That's the name of their band.
Nice.
If anyone out there wants to check it out, they make really cool music. And I think they just had a brand new music video release today.
Ah,
Yeah. Anyway, that's Wolf Spirit. I have done a little bit of stage work as a backing vocalist and on stage dance type person for Wolf Spirit for I think 2 of their live shows in the past 2 years or so, something like that. Um, I have done some singing. As a matter of fact, there was one instance back in January of this year. Through the music scene in Germany, I've met a lot of people and made a lot of friends. It's really, really great. One of my friends who has a band suddenly called me out of nowhere and said, "Hey, we have a slight problem. Our lead singer is very, very sick, and we have a gig in 2 days. Do you think that you could learn a set or half of a set in maybe 2 days and help us out?" And I said, "You know what? That sounds just crazy enough for me. Let's do it."
oh my.
And so what they did was they called me in and then they called a second person in so that one person wouldn't have to learn all of it. And they split the set between us. And I learned the first half and he learned the second half so that there was someone to carry the lead vocals through the whole set. And we pulled it off. What we did was we had one day they sent me all the files, and one day I sort of familiarized myself, and then the second day was the rehearsal, and we all got together and rehearsed together, and we had maybe the chance to play through each song one time, and that was it.
Hmm.
And then the very next day was the performance. And it was kind of a whirlwind feeling, but I'm so glad that I said yes because it was just this amazing experience. It was our little local club in Würzburg. Kleinrinderfeld is kind of near the Würzburg area. And so it was a local club, and it was just a really nice experience to be able to stand on that stage with some good friends and just make a lot of noise together and get everyone fired up. And it was just a really amazing experience. And I'm glad I said yes.
Yeah. I'm so excited to hear what's next for you in life, Lindsey. You are someone that is just living by the spirit, and I do appreciate that. I think that's awesome. One of the last things we always like to ask our guests is the question, what kind of recommendations would you have for Austin Peay students that might be interested in finding their way as you did and maybe following a path through music?
Okay, well, the first thing that I'm going to say is a very practical advice. And then the next one is going to be a little bit broader. So the practical advice is don't procrastinate on your big assignments until the very last day.
Thank you for saying that.
Because and I know that you're tired of hearing this because I was tired of hearing this, but from one procrastinator to maybe another, because I procrastinated on everything, and the only thing that it's going to bring you is a bunch of unnecessary stress that could have actually been avoided. So my big advice is if you have like that big project And like, not just for music students, but really just for anyone. If you have that big project or that big paper, like a major thing you're supposed to spend all this time on, like, please don't wait until the last day, because I can't tell you how many times I did that and had huge amounts of stress because of it. So that is my first advice. And then my second advice is for everyone out there. Please do not give up on your dreams, because even though, like, sometimes life is really wild and you just never know what is going to come your way, and you have to be open-minded enough to be able to say, like, when something really crazy happens, like you meet someone from another country and you don't know anything about this country, and it's kind of wild, and you're just thinking, wow, like, this path is opening up, but is it the right one for me? Oh, I don't know. That's pretty crazy. That sounds a little insane. Well, sometimes you just have to follow your intuition. Sometimes you just have to listen to that little voice that's over here on your shoulder that's telling you, if you do this, like if you jump off the cliff, you might just sprout wings, and I feel like it's really important to not give up on your dreams, even if it seems like it's really impossible. Like, even if it seems like, well, I'm never going to make money doing that, or I'm never going to have success doing that, or the big one, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to be a successful musician, or I'm not good enough to be a successful um craftswoman, or I'm not, no one's going to buy my jewelry, no one's going to buy my album, no one's going to. I mean, you have to sort of shut those voices down, because and believe in yourself and believe in your dreams, because you have those dreams for a reason, for a really good reason. And when the opportunity happens and that path opens up, just have faith and follow it. It's for you. It's opening for you.
Ah, well said, Lindsey. And I'm so glad we were able to catch you in the States. So there
Yes.
was not the time difference that it could have been.
Yes. I would have had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
So
Yes.
it's been such a joy talking with you today. And
Oh,
thanks
it
for being
really
on the,
has. It
yeah.
really has. I'm so
Well,
glad I could be here.
well, thanks again for sharing your journey so far. As I said,
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to hearing the next chapter.
Okay.
And thanks to all of our viewers and listeners out there for checking out the podcast. We hope that you will join us as we continue to profile some of the outstanding alumni we have here in the College of Arts and Letters and Austin Peay State University. So until next time, stay safe, take care, and God bless.